8 spine-chilling real recordings that will haunt you. Unearthly terror awaits. These are not dramatizations. These are raw angles, held hand phones, dash cams, and security feeds. Ordinary devices capturing moments that the people behind the lens did not expect to live through. Cities, highways, rented rooms, a motorhome in the mountains, a call center at closing time, and even a wildfire. 8 recordings that leave more questions than answers. We'll show each clip, describe what the camera captures, slow things down when the image demands it, and offer 2 possible ways to read what you just saw. You decide. Clip 1. Bangkok home. The child at the door. A family in Bangkok is relaxed and ordinary. A child playing near the apartment entry while a parent keeps the phone rolling. The child points at empty space, speaks in Thai to someone no one else sees, and a word, translated later, describes an elderly woman with very red eyes. The child suddenly stumbles forward as if an unseen hand guides or tugs, then sits back without tears, calm but shaken. On the footage, the room is sunlit. The child's voice is small and matter-of-fact. She looks inward, not at the camera, then reaches out. The camera jitters as the parent leans closer, whispering questions. The moment of contact is tiny, a step, a lurch. It's enough to make the adults freeze. Technical explanation. Children often react to subtle stimuli adults miss. A breeze, a fabric catch, a shadow on the floor. A loose hem on pajamas or an untied slipper can create the illusion of being pulled. Cameras compress light and motion, sometimes exaggerating a tiny loss of balance into something abrupt. Memory and fear color how witnesses later describe an event. Alternative reading. The child addresses something unseen and names details the adults never supplied. Her calm reaction afterward is not the panicked response adults might stage. For some, that points to an interaction with an unseen presence. Quiet, precise, unsettling. What would you have believed in that apartment that day? If you're drawn to real recordings like this, subscribe and hit the bell to see more. Clip 2. Highway apparition. The woman in white. It's around 3 a.m. A long-haul truck weaving through a lonely stretch of road. The dashcam records the asphalt ribbon, the intermittent glow of other headlights, the rhythm of wind and rain. Then, after another truck passes and briefly blots out the scene, a pale shape stands at the roadside. A slim figure in white, head bowed, hair loose. The trucker swerves only slightly, blinks, and then the shape is gone. On playback, slowing the frame reveals an emergence, a pale outline coalescing at the edge of the road rather than stepping out from behind objects. There is no clear shadow touching the ground the way a pedestrian would cast one under a roadside lamp. The driver hums into his microphone, voice clipped with a mix of adrenaline and incredulity.
Technical explanation. Headlights wake from a passing vehicle, and the glare on wet pavement can create momentary silhouettes. The brief blackout when the other truck passes could allow a visual artifact, reflections within the camera lens or on the windshield, to resolve into something human-shaped just as the second truck clears the frame. Visual misperception at night is common. Our brains prefer to fit fragments into familiar forms. Alternative reading. Witnesses insist the figure appears to stand perfectly still, then vanish with a crisp boundary where no physical obstruction existed. For those inclined toward the uncanny, the timing, appearing right after another truck, reads like something attached to the flow of passing vehicles, an apparition that lingers near roads where many accidents and sudden farewells occur. Would you have slowed down the footage and watched one more frame? Clip 3. Brazilian night. The 4 luminous orbs. A commuter in Brazil drives through rain-splattered headlights. Above the highway, 4 luminous spheres glide in an even formation. They move together, silent against the clouded moon, crossing the sky with an odd, precise geometry. No wobble, no blinking, just smooth, steady motion. The orbs keep pace for several seconds before the camera loses them against a darker bank of clouds. On screen, the orbs have crisp circular shapes, not the flickering points typical of aircraft or distant street lamps. The driver brakes, slows, and reaches for his phone to record the sky rather than the road. There's a sense of hushed awe expressed in the clipped Portuguese words translated on screen. Technical explanation. Drones can fly in coordinated formations and carry steady lights. Reflections off rain layers or multiple reflections of a single source between glass surfaces can also create the illusion of several distinct lights. Military or research aircraft sometimes use unusual lighting arrays that look unfamiliar to a civilian observer. Alternative reading. The formation is too geometrically consistent for a flock of birds or insects. The way the lights move, without the usual beacons or strobes, leads some to suggest something non-conventional, a craft or phenomenon not accounted for by familiar technology. With witness testimony adding immediacy, the site reads as deliberate and organized. Do these lights follow patterns we can explain, or patterns we're only beginning to notice? Clip 4. Motorhome window, the eyes at night. A camper owner parked under sparse mountain pines records inside the motorhome to document a strange scratching sound. The phone sits on a table, the dim interior light pools on wood grain. Outside, bushes rustle, and the sound intensifies. Then, reflected in the glass of the window, two large reflective discs appear, eyes, broad and unblinking, seeming to peer directly into the living space. The reflection magnifies them, round and glassy. The camper's hand, visible in the frame, halts mid-reach.
The eyes remain for a long breath, then fade when the person moves slightly away from the window. The footage shows something that looks larger than the typical wildcat, more reflective, and positioned in a way that is neither consistent with small mammal behavior nor easily explained by a distant light source. Technical explanation. Animal eyes catch light. At night, reflections can blow up into exaggerated orbs. A camera's focus, combined with condensation or surface irregularities on the window, can distort size and shape. A distant flashlight, aimed in just the right way, can create compelling eye-like reflections that seem close and large. Alternative reading. The pattern and size of the reflections and the way they seem to lock on to the human-shaped motion inside are odd. Witnesses describe behavior unlike a typical animal, lacking the darting movement of a predator, and instead remaining steady, almost deliberate. Some interpret that as an intelligence observing from outside. How would you react if something was silently watching you through glass while you were inside? Clip 5. Infant at play. The pulled leg. A young mother films her baby on a living room rug. Tiny hands, soft giggles, the little rhythm of play. At one moment, the baby's leg lifts as if grasped from the ankle and pulled gently sideways, then snaps back. The mother gasps, reaching to steady the child. She later brings the baby to doctors and to community elders. She shares recordings of prayers and rituals she underwent afterward. The footage itself shows only the small, unmistakable movement and the mother's worried face. On the clip, clothing shifts subtly around the ankle. The fabric seam could catch in the way that appears as a tug. The baby's natural wriggling and the angle of the camera can create the impression of a directed pull, when it's actually a normal spasm or stretch. Technical explanation. Pajama hems, elastic bands, or a loose thread can momentarily restrict a limb and release, making it look like an external pull. Babies make sudden reflexive movements, startles, Moro reflexes, or simple rolling that can translate oddly on camera. The camera's perspective can emphasize the motion, turning routine infant behavior into an apparently external force. Alternative reading. The mother insists the movement was not typical and that her baby was calm before and after. The specificity of the motion, a sideways tug at the ankle, leads some to hypothesize external interference, especially in cultures where unseen forces are commonly invoked to explain sudden, unexplainable sensations. This one tests how we balance parental instinct, cultural interpretation, and simple physics. What does your gut say? Clip 6. Rented house. Doors, lights, and a shadow at the threshold. A new tenant films a litany of disturbances, lights flickering inexplicably, drawers left slightly open after they were shut, and the feeling of a cold gust passing through an otherwise sealed kitchen. A phone records as the tenant walks down the hallway. The camera catches a dark vertical shape leaning at the far edge of a doorway. The shape is not detailed, no face, no limbs clearly defined, but it has a presence that arrests the frame. In the footage, small items shift between shots. The camera operator's breath can be heard, nervous but controlled. The dark figure lingers only a few seconds before dissolving into the grain of the video, yet the human reaction on camera, eyes wide, fingers tightening on the phone, gives the moment an uneasy intimacy. Technical explanation. In older houses, drafty vents can cause flickering lights and moving drawers. People live with half-closed cupboards. A restless cat or a settling house can account for moved objects. Camera compression combined with a low-light sensor can create blotches that read as humanoid shapes. A trick of perspective can merge shadow and furniture into a silhouette. Alternative reading. The presence aligns spatially with the doorway and seems to be watching the hallway rather than merely existing as random noise. Witnesses often report an escalation, increased disturbance after the initial sighting, which some interpret as reactive haunting, a pattern that goes beyond mechanical explanations. If you were the newcomer in that house, would you stay to investigate or would you leave? Clip 7. Call center after hours. Prayer and the falling chairs. Security footage shows the aftermath of a day's shift in a call center. Rows of desks, swivel chairs, fluorescent lights going dim. One employee remains, arms folded in a small, quiet prayer before closing his workstation. For no obvious reason, multiple chairs topple over in quick succession across separate aisles. The man's prayer halts. He looks around, stunned as the chairs continue to fall without anyone touching them. The click is unnerving because the chairs do not fall all at once, but in a staggered cascade. Each chair tips in a way that seems too neat to be simple gusts of air. The surveillance footage captures the timing clearly. No visible strings nor hands appear in the frame. Technical explanation. If the chairs were unlocked or positioned on uneven flooring, small vibrations from movement elsewhere, doors closing, HVAC cycles, or even a vehicle passing nearby, can set them toppling. A coordinated prank using remote triggers or timed mechanical devices could also create the effect without anyone in the frame. Video compression could remove brief moments showing interaction. Alternative reading. Eyewitness testimony insists there were no pranks in process, and the sequence aligns too well with the man's prayer for some observers to call it coincidence.
In certain traditions, poltergeist-like events intensify around emotionally charged behaviors. For those watching, the idea that the room responded to a prayer is a deeply unsettling possibility. Do you read that room as mechanically unstable or as something responding to a human presence and intention? Clip 8. Fireground, the silhouette among the flames. A bystander films a controlled burn that spreads into a larger blaze. Firefighters push back as embers scatter. In the middle of the inferno, briefly and disturbingly, a dark human-shaped silhouette appears to walk among the flames. No visible flares around its edges, as if it is not burning at all. The figure crosses a pocket of fire and moves into shadow. The footage catches the shape for only a few seconds before smoke and light obscure the scene again. On screen, flames roar and the camera shakes with adrenaline. The silhouette is darker than the smoke, with an outline that suggests shoulders and a head. The footage makes the shape look like a person made of negative space, moving through heat as if untouched. Technical explanation. Cameras struggling with extreme contrasts, bright flames and darker objects can render underexposed parts as solid black. Smoke density and backlighting can create dark voids suggestive of human outlines. A person stepping in and out of light could easily appear to be walking through flames, especially at a distance. Lens artifacts or momentary occlusion can trick the eye. Alternative reading. The silhouette's smooth traversal and the way the flames seem to part around it create an image that feels like myth made real. For witnesses already on edge, the sight reads like something beyond physical limits. Whether it's a rescue worker in protective gear, someone misidentified by perspective, or something else entirely, the image is one of the most viscerally disturbing on the compilation. Which explanation fits? Camera limits, heroic human movement, or something that shouldn't survive fire? Final montage and reflection. You've seen 8 recordings: a child speaking to someone unseen, a pale figure by the roadside, 4 lights gliding above a highway, reflective eyes at a motorhome window, a baby whose leg appears to be pulled, a shadow in a rented house, chairs toppling during a prayer, and a silhouette walking through flames. Each clip resists a neat conclusion. Sometimes the simplest answer is the likeliest: light refracted, clothes snagging, animals reflected, electronics misbehaving, or deliberate hoaxes. Cameras distort, memory rewrites, fear fills in blanks. And yet, even with every skeptical tool at hand, a few frames remain stubborn, images that refuse to sit comfortably inside any ordinary explanation. Is there a threshold where probability gives way to the unknown? Does repeated reporting across cultures and environments suggest a common phenomenon, or do human perception and shared storytelling create patterns we mistake for evidence?
The honest answer is, we don't know. That uncertainty is the real haunt, the part that lingers after you stop watching. Which of these 8 recordings unsettled you the most? Tell us in the comments which clip you think is explained and which one still chills you. If you felt the chill, like this video, subscribe for more real recordings, and come back next week for another collection of unsettling moments caught on camera. Unearthly terror awaits. Sometimes it walks across our screens, and sometimes it waits just beyond the edge of the frame.